Christopher Steele is a former MI6 intelligence officer who spent 2 decades working for Britain's Secret Intelligence Service. He now runs his own consultancy and came to prominence over a dossier he compiled about former President Donald Trump's links with Moscow. Well, Christopher ran MI6's Russia desk for 3 years and has in-depth knowledge of Vladimir Putin and his psyche, and that's what I want to talk to him about tonight. And I'm pleased to say he joins me here live in the studio in London Bridge. Christopher, hi, thanks for coming.
Hi, Tom.
It's day 67 of the war. How do you think it's going as far as the Kremlin are concerned?
I think it's going pretty catastrophically badly for the Kremlin. From what we're understanding coming out of Moscow information, it looks as though they haven't really achieved any of their objectives. And I think the most extraordinary thing of this war, and something that none of us expected, was the performance of the Ukrainian armed forces on the battlefield, which is the defining point at the moment in the conflict.
So there's been a lot of debate about what happens when Putin is pushed into a corner. He's suffered a lot of humiliations. What if he suffers another one? Are we going to push him into using nuclear weapons? Now, we had the Prime Minister on this programme last week. He said categorically no, he's got room to retreat. What's your take? Because it used to be your job to advise Prime Ministers on precisely these incredibly finely balanced decisions.
Yes, this wouldn't be the first time that we'd come close to a potential nuclear conflict with Russia or the Soviet Union. My view is that the problem that Putin has at the moment is probably as much on the right of him, if you like, the nationalists, the hulks in the Kremlin, who are saying that this war is not going well, we're not being ruthless enough, actually, rather than necessarily on the left of him, people in Russia like Kudrin, the former finance minister, who are opposed to this war. So I think he is in a very difficult place at the moment, and I think it's a very dangerous moment, to be honest.
OK, I want to play you a clip. We saw one a little earlier, these sort of growing rants against Britain on Russian, state-controlled Russian TV. This one is on Rossiya 1 yesterday, a huge, the most popular TV station. And it's from someone called Dmitry Kiselyov, who's also known as Putin's mouthpiece. Have a look at this.
Другой вариант – погрузить Британию в морскую пучину российский подводный робот-беспилотник «Посейдон». Боеголовка на нем мощностью до 100 мегатонн. Взрыв этой термоядерной торпеды у берегов Британии поднимет гигантскую волну, цунами высотой до 500 метров. Такой водяной шквал является еще и носителем экстремальных доз радиации. Пройдя над британскими островами, он превратит то, что от них, может быть, еще и останется, в радиоактивную пустыню.
So, I mean, clearly ludicrous in some respects, not least because some scientists have actually looked at the maths and all this, and you can't actually do that even with a nuclear bomb 10 times the size dropped on Hiroshima. But it's pretty chilling from other respects. Why do you think the Kremlin are doing this?
I think they're trying to frighten the Western public and the Western electorate, to put pressure on their politicians out of fear of a nuclear conflict, to pull back from supporting Ukraine. But of course, overall, if we don't support Ukraine and Ukraine doesn't win on the battlefield and move forward as an independent country, that conflict will spread further west into Western Europe, and we'll have an even bigger problem on our hands.
Let me ask you about what's going on inside Vladimir Putin's head. I mean, no one's in there, that much is obvious, but people like you spent some time trying to study him. Do you think he's mad? Do you think he's ill? There's been a lot of rumours he's had cancer or even Parkinson's.
I don't think he's mad. I think he is probably ill. Everything we're hearing suggests that he's got some sort of serious illness. It's not quite clear what that is or how serious it is. When this conflict began, I was mystified in a sense because there was no obvious trigger for this conflict, this invasion, this huge gamble, effectively, that Putin has taken now with his legacy. And it may be that it is his illness and the fact that he wants to solidify his legacy as he sees it that's driving him forward. Because
he's unwell, because he thinks he might not have many years to go. What do you think is success from them? Because obviously, you know, he's very unlikely to take the whole of Ukraine now. He's withdrawn back to the east. He may or may not win the Battle of Donbass. He may then go for Odessa and the southern coastline. What do you think he would be happy with before he calls it quits?
I'm not sure he would be content with anything other than the removal of Zelensky and the Ukrainian government, and that isn't going to happen as far as I can tell. So I think it's a matter of what he can present to his supporters and his people as a success, rather than what objectively is a success, or indeed what was seen as him objectives of the campaign to begin with. So he'll try and persuade the Russian people, notably on the 9th of May when he has this big parade, that he's taken large chunks of Lugansk and Donetsk and he's created this land bridge to Crimea. But that's what all of us expected him to do in the first place. And of course, this is plan D or E now at this stage.
We are expecting him to say something significant, aren't we, next Monday? Let me ask you another point about this. New York Times over the weekend carried an interview with one of Putin's former henchmen, and also Fiona Hill, the very well-respected former US official. She's referred to what Putin's up to as aspirational authoritarianism. Now, blame for a lot of this has been put at President Trump's foot. You've had some dealings with President Trump and your report. How much do you think President Trump and his very lax attitude to Putin has emboldened him and created the Ukraine war?
I think Western leaders generally, Trump included, have sent the wrong signals to the Russians and particularly to Putin. If you look at the way in which Germany's become dependent on Russian gas since 2005 when the first gas cut-off took place, if you look at the rhetoric that came out of Trump, in particular his comments that, you know, the Russia was no different from America in the way it conducted itself in the world, and questioning NATO and questioning whether his own intelligence services or the Russians were telling the truth about interference in 2016, I think you can see, indeed, the reaction to 2014, the occupation of Crimea, that we've sent out completely the wrong signals, which Putin has read as weakness.
And finally, Christopher, you've had a lot of run-ins with Moscow, both while serving with MI6 and afterwards. Have you ever felt threatened personally or in fear of your own life?
Physically threatened, I'm not sure I have felt physically threatened, although there was one incident which is already out there at a hotel in the Caribbean when we stayed there, me and my wife. We had an unexpected visit at the hotel and they left their calling cards, effectively, 2 wedding rings, which was all very mysterious and strange. So that was quite spooky.
You think that was Russia?
Yes.
OK. You're a man in no doubt about that. Christopher Steele, it's been a pleasure talking to you. Thanks so much for coming in.
Thank you very much for having me.